Cool. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snake Tales with Thus. Thanks for coming. Through these Monday Fix Goer programs, we bring you together perspectives of various issues to keep you engaged, inspired, and sharp. Thus's work over the years can be found in links posted in the chat box towards the end of the program. There is also a contribution link so that you can help to keep us going, as we are a small independent organization and we're striving to promote dialogue and not profits. Please keep your mics muted and your videos off. Panelists will unmute their mics as they speak. Please use the chat box for any comments and questions. We'll get plenty of time later to answer those. So we're going to talk today about snakes. And I want to start by addressing this point about Molem and the protests that have been happening today, because they've been getting an awful lot of media recently. Now, these projects are clearly going to have an immense and potentially irreversible impact, not just on snakes, but on all of wildlife and indeed all of Goa. It is without doubt that we need to move forward, to develop and to innovate. But it's clearer than ever that it should not come at an immense cost to nature. In fact, it needs to support nature. We need nature, and we need ancient and biodiverse ecosystems like the Western Ghats to be not just intact, but thriving. Without that, there is no prosperity and there is no future for Goa. So that's one thing that I thought would be really important to start on, because it's going to be a topic, I guess, that we're going to touch on a few times, because you can't talk about snake tails in Goa right now without the impact that these forests are going to have. I'm going to start by introducing the panelists, and that's going to give them all 5-10 minutes to introduce themselves and to say a little bit about snakes. So I want to start with Aaron. Aaron, hello, how's it going?
Very good, Alex. Nice to meet you again.
Nice to see you again. Yeah, actually, we were meeting each other just this morning. He came all the way from the north to the south. Yeah. But now we are back in our separate corners. Yeah. So Aaron is a rescuer based in North Goa. I've known him and I've worked alongside him for some years. And actually, we did the Snake Squad program on Animal Planet together, which was super good fun. Aaron, tell us a little bit about the work you do. And tell us the one thing that you feel that everybody should know about snakes from your perspective.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been working with wildlife rescue, snake conservation, and conservation outreach and awareness for the past 2 decades. And I mean, there are a lot of things to talk about in regards to snakes, but there's one thing that's really close to me right now, and also because I'm kind of interested in the whole snake bite scenario and issue that India faces right now, is the whole angle we have from the rescuers and the rescue point of view when it comes to snakes straying into people's homes and everything, which is what I really would like to address and sincerely tell all the newer rescuers that are coming up onto the scene right now, is that I think there's a lot of things that you need to figure out when it comes to a rescue to actually understand what a rescue is all about, to not misconstrue the whole word of rescue, rescuer, and the whole thing about being, these things of Sarpa Mitra, and, which is, I think, is a little weird, because I understand that this whole thing comes and is stemming from the whole concept of a love for snakes. But, snakes are not dogs. Snakes are animals which will bite given the chance. They don't get tame. You cannot train a snake to do something. So that whole concept of Sarpa Mitra and being a snake friend is a little misconstrued from my angle. Simply because when you have this concept, then you tend to do other stupid stuff, which comes along, like kissing a snake and all these type of things, that goes along with what you consider to be a Sarpa Mitra, which is, I think, really stupid. If you're really rescuing snakes, then you understand how it's to be done ethically, properly, using proper protocol, and don't run away from what you're really supposed to do. So when you're really rescuing a snake, understand, number one, if it needs to be rescued. Many a times there's a snake, not inside somebody's house per se. Just because the person is telling you come and take it away doesn't mean it's a rescue. You're actually rescuing the person as compared to the snake, and all these kind of things. But very much my message right now is from a very rescuer's point of view to please understand what a rescue really is. Don't unnecessarily trouble and torment a snake for no reason. Don't take it out of its natural home and relocate it somewhere else, because there's a lot of evidence that proves the detrimental effects of translocation. And yeah, that's about it. I'm sure that the other panelists will really help out in other aspects of snake conservation and rescue as well. But this is my message. Yeah. So that's it.
Super cool. Thank you. There are a few of those things that we'll touch on later. Definitely this idea of what is a snake's natural home. Certainly when I started doing rescue, it was always about moving the snake to the forest, as if they don't live in and amongst our villages. And actually the reality is that they live everywhere in Goa. There may be more of a species diversity in the forest, but there is definitely as many snakes in the urban areas as there are inside the forest. So we'll definitely talk about that a little bit later because it's a super interesting one. But for now, let's go and introduce Sherry. Hello, Sherry. How's it going?
I'm good.
Very good. So Sherry is a young environmental and ecological activist, as well as a journalism student. Over the years, her passion has led her into some amazing situations and some quite interesting rescues. Sherry, tell us a little bit about you, and also tell us the one thing that you would really like to say about snakes.
So, I just graduated with my bachelor's degree in journalism, and one of the main reasons why I opted for journalism is because I wanted to be an environment writer. I wanted to be a wildlife journalist. Um, I have had a predilection for snakes for many years, for as long as I can remember. And I think the first time I ever had any experience, that is my first experience with a snake, was when I was home and I heard my mom and my brother talking about years ago when they saw a snake that crossed their path, and they freaked out and they ran from there. And that is what actually got my attention, that, why did it scare them? Why were they scared? And that's when I begin wanting to learn more about them and begin wanting to know why are people so afraid of snakes. And that's when I realized that, if you give a newborn child, by newborn I mean if you give a toddler a toddler a snake, or you put a toddler in front of a snake, the toddler will not show any fright. The toddler won't be afraid, because it is not instilled in, the society hasn't instilled this fear in them when they're, you know by when they're that small. This fear develops as the toddler, as the child gradually grows up. They're taught that you should be afraid of snakes, which I think is really wrong. And this is the main reason why snakes are so misunderstood, because they're not given a chance to the people are not even given a chance to kind of learn about them. They're just told that you're supposed to be scared. So all this made me want to learn more about snakes. I wanted to learn a lot more, and I wanted to know what to do when these things happen. So I remember I was in school when I came across a rescuer, and I used to really worry this person to take me along for rescues. And he was, of course, hesitant because I was below 18. I think I was around 12 or 13 years old. I was 13, I think. So he was obviously not willing to do that, but I was very persistent. And eventually he would take me along, never would let me do anything, would just let me observe. And then as I grew up, I started learning from different people. I came across different individuals who had so much to offer. I learned from people like Mr. Charan Desai. He has an organization called Save. So I learned so much about snakes there. I learned from Mr. Johnson. I had so much of experience there. So I kept learning. And then I met Benhail, who is also on the panel over here. And I learned so much from Benhail as well. And I realized that there is so much of information and, so much that people do. And that is when I realized that what I really like to do when it comes to snakes is work on awareness and the topic of coexistence, and how one must learn to basically adapt to have snakes in their surroundings. They are basically urban species. Um, so I started with a blog, and I used to document my rescues or any incidents that I would have with people, and I would write all about it. I would give out information about a particular species. I would, of course, talk to different rescuers, also take some inputs from them, include it in the blog, and I used to post this around for people to read, so that they had more access to what to do in situations like this, or, so that they could read and learn more. And yeah, so since then, I have really enjoyed speaking. When it comes to snakes, I've enjoyed explaining to people why there is no reason or need to be afraid. And I've tried my best to write articles, even in newspapers, about unusual rescues and what people can do and whom they can call and stuff like that. So my main interest when it comes to this is coexistence and outreach. Yeah, I'm done. Alex, I think you're muted. Yeah.
Thank you, Sherry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Wicked. Yeah, super cool. There's a lot of those things that we're going to have to touch on later as well. This idea about people being scared of snakes is one that fascinated me from the beginning as well. I actually think probably my interest for snakes started with this weird, like, why is it that everybody is fearful of these creatures, you know? So it's a very interesting one, and maybe we can get some people also writing in. What is it that made them fear snakes, or what is it that they think makes people fear snakes? Okay, so we'll move on to Benhail. Hello, Benhail. How's it going? I'll unmute you.
Cool.
Yes.
Hi guys, hi. So I've been involved in rescue for nearly 2 decades with regards to snakes, crocodiles, and most other wildlife. But rescue is just a part of what I do because I want to save that individual. I know that rescue of an individual does not go and contribute much towards the big picture of conservation unless awareness is spread. Now, while sharing awareness, we need to understand that a person can learn to live with a snake or not kill a snake for that matter, only if they're not afraid of them. And the first thing when I do when I start these awareness programs, which I've been doing for around 15 years now in various schools, colleges, is I ask people, why are you scared of snakes? And there is technically only one answer that comes to me, that they're scared and they say that a snake bites. And I say, snakes can bite. Yeah, that's true. So can a dog, so can a cat, so can I. What makes you scared of a snake and not of a dog or of a cat? Yeah. So we learn to realize that this fear has been instilled in people. Yeah. There are only 2 fears that humans are born with, a child is born with. One is height and the other is the unknown. So what happens is when the child is small, the parents take them out to the garden or to a park and show them a bird or show them a butterfly and say, see how beautiful it is. It's a colorful butterfly. The bird chirps beautifully in the trees. So we start learning to admire a bird and a butterfly. But the first thing a child hears about a snake is, do not roam in the night, a snake will bite you. Do not play in the grass, a snake will bite you. Do not whistle in the night, a snake will come and bite you. So the first thing that we're hearing about a snake since we're small is that snakes bite. And so it's a fear that is instilled in us. And sometimes it's not even verbal. It's just like I've been trying to explain to a kid about snakes, and the child is very responsive. The snake is around. I've been rescuing it. The child is very responsive, coming to look at the snake, observe it, and then suddenly the mother appears and screams. So when the mother screams, it's when the child reacts because she knows the mother is screaming out of fear, and this is something I need to be scared of. And then the child's reaction changes towards the snake. Yeah. So all these fears are instilled in us consciously or subconsciously and at different levels. So the main reason I do these awareness programs, or we need to share awareness, is to remove fear of people. So once we have fear removed and then give them a little of knowledge, then they'll learn to protect the environment. So that's what we've been harping on for a lot of years. We've had calls coming in from all over the state, that, I've run over a snake in the night. I mean, in the daytime, and they're scared in the night. Like yesterday itself, I got a call at around 3 o'clock in the morning saying that I'm very scared. I don't get sleep because I ran over a snake in the afternoon, and my family members are saying that the snake will come to take revenge. So there are a lot of myths about snakes that are in people that are reinforced by Bollywood or Hollywood. They've captured on these emotions of people and made stories and earned money out of it. So these fears we need to remove. Once we remove the fears, then people will learn to appreciate and observe how amazing they are. Snakes are amazing creatures. They can swim, they can glide through air, they can climb trees. Most other mammals with 4 limbs would not be able to do what snakes do. So we need to learn to appreciate them for what they are. And there are very few people who are really bitten by snakes and had a bad experience. And surprisingly, these people who have had a bad experience with snakes, or rather what we call a bad experience with snakes, have got over it and realized that snakes aren't there to harm them. It's only in self-defense that they would harm. And there are many festivals and ancient rituals that you should protect the snake. Like if you go to the Western Ghats, you go towards Valpoi or Netravali. I remember one king cobra call that we had. I was in Panjim, and the king cobra call was in Netravali, which is around 2.5 hours from where I was. And this was way back in the 2002, 2003. And Then they called us saying that there's this big king cobra, they called it Nagin, under the bed. And I said, please wait, there's nobody else in the south. And there wasn't anybody in the south. So we said, we'll come, just have some patience. It was under the bed where they were sleeping. And they just said, sir, don't worry. We worship the snake. We will not kill it. Okay, we respect it. So they all waited outside the house. We went there. We pulled out the king cobra from under the bed. And they all were very pleased with it. And then they said, what are you going to do with it? We said, we'll leave it in the wildlife sanctuary. They said, here in Netravali, close by to us. We said, yeah, of course. They said, cool, that's good. That's what we want you all to do, you know. So people in the past used to learn to live in harmony with snakes. Like many people, there's a very important thing that people say is, I don't want snakes around me. And I asked them why. They said, because we have kids playing around. You know, the kids can die of a snake bite. I said, that's fine. A venomous snake will bite only in self-defense. Okay, and then your kid needs treatment. But your kid is subjected to so many other risks. It's just convenient for you to kill the snake or to rehabilitate the snake. I said, the moment your kid turns 16 years old, you're going to give them a motorcycle. The motorcycle has more chances of taking your kid's life than the snake. So why are we really so scared of snakes that we say that if we see a snake, we need to remove it from here and leave it in a wildlife sanctuary? That concept is bad. You know, we man have made boundaries, wildlife sanctuaries, colonies and stuff like that. But in the wild, we need to share the same space. And only if we share the same space will we learn to live in harmony and will the environment be in its perfect form. So we need to learn to share our space with snakes or any other creature. Yeah. So I hope these awareness program and today's session helps to clear quite a few myths and stuff like that. I hope the participants keep posting questions because that will direct us towards the points that, you know, the participants need answers on. And I hope this goes on well.
Super cool. Yeah, there's lots of really interesting points in that. So we're going to have to raise them all later, I guess. I'm just going to give you guys a quick introduction about me. So obviously I'm not from Goa, but I have been living here for the past 5 years, and I've been involved with snakes and wildlife for almost as long as I can remember. And I've always had a particular fascination for snakes. I don't know exactly why, but I used to keep them as a child back living in the UK. And I've been now here since 5 years, and very quickly the local community found out, aha, this guy can rescue snakes, and that made me a useful addition to the community. It's been really an unbelievable learning curve for me, because my only previous experience in this kind of a thing was actually over in Central America, and that was more wildlife rescue. Snakes were involved, but this is really almost exclusively snakes here in Goa. And getting an insight into local communities, into tribal communities, and into these, the myths of snakes in India was quite fascinating for me as an outsider, and very intimate. Like, it really gave me an amazing opportunity to learn about Goa and Goans from the inside. So I'm hugely thankful to Goa for hosting me, and to Goan people for helping. Yeah, for slowly and surely changing their habits and their opinions about snakes. Hopefully these kind of talks will help with that. The one thing that I want to say to everyone about snakes is probably whatever you have been told is not true. Unless you have somebody who happens to know a little bit about snakes, pretty much every story you hear is not true. And if you start to spend a little bit of time with snakes, then everything changes, because you will very, very quickly realize that they're not bad creatures at all. Actually, they're the opposite. Like, if you, for example, are walking down the beach and there's a pack of stray dogs, they might well run after you and bark. They're probably still not going to bite you, but they will initiate a confrontation. A snake is never, ever going to initiate a confrontation. At least that I know of in Goa, there are only going to be defensive actions taken from snakes. We have the ability, therefore, to direct the way that an interaction will go. As soon as we've seen a snake, it is no longer dangerous. It's very, very easy, like even in the case of a cobra or a Russell's viper, to give that snake space if you've seen it. And the best thing in that case is just to leave it completely alone. Now, one of the things that happened when I first arrived here a lot, and I would like to think is reducing, is that people were killing snakes. Now, the simple thing with killing snakes is if you're close enough to kill it, then probably it's close enough to bite you. And if it happens to be a dangerous snake, then that means that it's close enough to potentially kill you. Now, the simple thing is, it's not necessary. Like, once you've seen the snake, it's not dangerous. It's as simple as that. So yeah, this is a really important thing for people to remember. You know, if you're walking down the street and you happen to see a snake, don't be scared. You know, actually observe it. Watch what will happen, because what will happen is the snake will not be aggressive. It will not be confrontational towards you. It will just carry on its behavior. And actually, its behavior is super interesting, because in many cases, they're doing an amazing job for us as humans, sorting out the problems that we create. Yeah, so that's about all that I want to say. I will go now back to every person once and just ask them about one question, which is, what was their most memorable snake rescue in their to now experiences? Benhail, maybe we can start with you as you're unmuted. Is there one rescue that stands out for you where you go, okay, this one was weird, or this one was amazing, or anything like that?
This question caught me off guard. I really don't have an answer right now. But there are so many amazing weird rescues. I mean, amazing rescues would be, you know, I go to catch one snake and happen to catch another snake eating that snake. That has happened in the past. I was called for a rescue of a checkered eelback. By the time I reached that spot, another spectacled cobra had gone and already caught the checkered eelback and started eating it. In terms of weird rescues, it happens all the time. I mean, I've gone for calls at like 2 a.m. in the morning. There is a snake. People say that it's been there for the last 4 hours. Please come fast. And finally, I go there and go to see it's a lizard's tail popping out from behind the cupboard. Yeah, and people are paranoid, don't want to sleep. So yeah, so that's there. I've gone for calls where a person sees this frog's head on the roof just popping out, and they again think it's a snake. So weird snake calls have been a lot. But there have been cases like I've gone to even to the second floor of a building, and somebody said there's a snake in my air conditioning unit, and I said yes, possible. So I go there and I pull out the adult snake, and there was a nice big bronze back tree snake, which happens to be a female at that time, and it was a mating season. So the moment I pulled her out, I saw another head popping out. So we went on pulling these snakes out, and we had rescued 9 snakes from a single air conditioning unit in the bedroom of a person on the second floor. Like, so you can't run away from snakes. I mean, you can't hide either from them. They are everywhere. So we just need to learn to live with them. You know, people ask me like, what plants can I plant to keep snakes away? What roots can I use? Nothing does help. Because if there is a proper environment for snakes, whether they have proper water, they have a cool place to stay, and their proper food source, they'll keep being there, right? They just stay there and they keep hunting and sheltering there. So there is no way you can keep snakes away from your residence. I know at the most you can keep rodents away, but that will only remove their food source. It will not remove their shelter. So weird rescues, you know, where people are really, I've had people like really crying bitterly. There was another place in Vasco. The family had locked their house. They called me. I reached there after the police called me. The police said, please, can you come and handle the situation? There was a small house in Vasco, and the door was latched. And I went there. There was somebody sitting with one of the spiritual leaders sitting on the floor with rice and with agarabattis. And I asked, what's going on? They said, no, there's a snake in the room. I said, and how long has this man been there? Because that leader seemed to have, you know, stayed there for quite a while. He said, there's 7 days. I said, 7 days this man has been outside? He said, yes, he's communicating with the snake. So the people are out of the house, staying at the neighbor's house. The house is locked. They're looking after this man who's supposed to be communicating with the snake. So I just go open the door, go inside. It's a grocery storeroom. So there were sacks of rice and rats around. There was a huge cobra there. I picked it out, but then I was like stunned with the people's reaction. Like, they kept man guarding their house, doing prayers for 7 days because of the snake inside, and they're so terrified of it. So yeah, a lot of these interesting rescues. I don't know which one to say is the most unique one, but yeah, they've all, you know, instilled memories with me.
Yeah, that sounds very similar in mine. I can think of one particular rescue that was just very bizarre, which was that it was supposed to be a python, and it was there in the firewood of a house, and there must have been a crowd of 50 or 60 people had gathered by the time I reached. And I went around to have a look, and there was some kind of what looked like a snake, a scaled animal, but all of the colors were wrong, it just looked wrong in every sense. So I went around and looked inside, and it was actually a beach mat. It was like a kind of a bamboo colored beach mat. And I actually brought that out and then showed that to everyone. And they then realized also, I think, the craziness of this. There's some thing in their place, and they can't even go to check what it is. They're that scared that they're not going to go and have a look. Is this definitely a snake? Crazy. But quite amusing at the time. Sherry, one memorable snake rescue.
Yeah. So I remember a few years ago, I was called for a rescue in Bogmalo. So I asked my friend to drop me because I'm not new to you. And when I went there, the whole family was outside a room, and the father was clearly mortified. He was like, he had latched the door and he said that there's a snake inside and it's near the cupboard. So I went, checked it out. It was a small Russell's kukri, and I scooped it up and I went outside. And before bagging it, I thought, let me tell them a little bit about it, because they seemed so scared of something it was smaller, it was just this much. So I thought, let me just tell them a little bit about it. And hopefully they would let me release it in their garden itself, because they had a really big garden. So I spoke to him and I explained everything, whatever I knew, I explained. I kept talking to him. I answered his questions. And in the end, he asked me if I was a scientist. And that kind of like took me a little aback, because I realized that, so many people do not have this kind of information. They do not, there's no one that, so we do, like people do a lot of rescue of, awareness talks and stuff in schools and in colleges. But what about the older generation? I feel like that's, the older generation do not have this information easily available now, because most of them, either they don't have internet on their phones or things like that. So when you asked me this question, I was so surprised that, some information that is supposed to be out there, that should be out there for everyone, isn't there. And after I explained to him about everything, he was like, you know what, leave it right here in the backyard. It can scoot around, it can roam around and stuff. It's fine. You can release it here only in the garden, because I told him that it's absolutely harmless, and even if it was a venomous snake, it would not be in your way. So he let me release it there itself, and I was so glad. And then again, the next time, after a few months, he called me up and he asked me about another one. It was a cobra, which was not inside the house; it was outside the house. And he was like, is it okay? Does it have to be rescued and stuff? So I was like, no. I mean, there's no chance it will come inside the house. If it comes inside the house, then you can ask, like you can call me, or you can ask someone to come and take it out. Otherwise, it's not required. And he was like, okay. He actually left the cobra right there outside. He let it be. And I was so happy that, that 5 minutes of talking to him and deciding to tell him a little bit about that Russell Kukri actually helped this cobra. And I was, so that really was a very nice little story. And then the second time was, I think, with Benhail. I got a call from Sir Nirmal Kulkarni about a cobra that was stuck on a glue trap. And this was in the harbor. And it was on the third floor, I think, on the second or third floor. And I scanned every place, I tried to think about how this cobra must have entered this place, because it seemed impossible for a cobra to be there. And it was right at the reception, and it was stuck on a glue trap, and it was really, really messy. So then Ben and me were there, and then we rescued it from there. And then I spoke to these guys about how you should not be using a glue trap, because it's just mean for any animal, for that matter, not just a snake, to be stuck on that. Like that's a very bad way to go. So we spoke to them, and he's like, no, I didn't expect a snake to be here. I expected rats or mice and stuff. And we were like, see, it's not just about the snakes, it's about any other creature. So just glue traps are horrible. They catch all kinds of creatures and stuff. And then after that, after telling them, not to use glue traps and all, we also spoke to some animal. And we rescued that snake, and then afterwards it was a tedious process of getting all the glue out of this snake's skin and stuff. And then after, when we released that snake, there were a few people. We shared the story. Ben had made a nice video. We shared the story, and it was so nice that there were two people that messaged me after that on Instagram, and they told me about how their mom used to use glue traps, and after watching that, they were like they just stopped using glue traps after that. So that was another really, I mean, that was a very nice experience for me. Like that, there are quite a few actually, but these are two that I can think of right now. Yeah.
Super cool. We'll go quickly to Aaron. Aaron, have you got one very memorable rescue?
I have loads of them, Alex, but I think one which I could really talk about right now, and which is a little different because it's really, really funny, is this one time when I was called to a friend's mom's, not really a friend's mom's house, but a friend's relative's house. And they're this very orthodox Hindu family, who have all these beliefs and superstition and stuff that revolves around snakes, and the capabilities to do harm, and the abilities to 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 do whatever with the type of venom that they have, which is all kind of fueled from from belief and the tradition and culture and superstition and stuff like this. Wherein I actually picked up a snake from somebody's house with the ease that comes with working with these reptiles for so many years, as all of you all know. And in this particular house, there was a rat snake inside a laundry bag. So when we ultimately found the snake, all I had to do was actually put my hand in and pick it up and put it into another bag and take it away, which was enough to surprise this lady so much that she then went on to produce a plate with a coconut and and a little bit of rice and some stuff to do puja to me, because the belief is that unless you have some sort of divine power, so to say, then it's you're incapable of catching a snake. So that wasn't the end of it, but she went on to tell my friend who brought me there, because he knows that I catch snakes, but of course obviously doesn't believe in all of this, that this particular boy who is your friend for sure knows the Agastya Rishi mantra, and that's why he can catch a snake, coupled with the fact that of course my hair looks like this, but this boy burst out laughing and he said, something that you're talking about Agastya Rishi. This is a boy who is a Catholic, Roman Catholic Christian boy, from a home in Goa, who doesn't even know who Agastya Rishi is, like in the first place, coupled with the fact that snakes can't hear. So I really don't know what you're talking about, but you can continue believing with what you believe. But this is actually a diode, or a common rat snake, and you could also have put your hand into the same bag and pulled it out if you hadn't thought about it so much, and it would have been the same thing. So yeah, that was really funny for me, because this is the first time someone actually offered me a coconut with some rice and that kind of thing. But it's quite cool. Yeah. Eventually, she did learn about everything, and yeah, the rescue went well.
Great. Yeah, these kind of things come up. I also a few times have been falsely revered, shall we say, for my ability with snakes, and I've had to be very straight with everyone. Look, like I'm definitely a normal person, the same as you or anyone else. There's nothing particularly special about me. I just happen to have observed them and understand them for a while. Okay, wicked. So we have a few questions on the chat, and there's also a few things that we want to raise additionally, some questions that we've written up. Yes, so the first question, which I'll do to you, Aaron, seeing as you're with us and unmuted. Somebody here, Geeta, has asked, hi everyone, hi Geeta. Do all snakes have the ability to move in water? That's an interesting one. Aaron?
Yeah, that's a nice question. Do all snakes have the ability to move through water? I would say all of them do, although there are some that are specialized to live in a water kind of environment. That would mean the sea snakes. And then of course you would have other estuarine and river snakes that also have the ability to move much better in water as compared to other land snakes. The sea snakes, of course, if you look at them very closely, you will see that the latter part of the body tends to kind of get a little bit laterally compressed, as how you would say it, and they have more sort of a fin-like kind of, ending to the tail with a paddle-shaped tail that enables them to swim much better in water. So all snakes are comfortable in the water. All of them would enter water if given the chance, and they had no other option. But I would say sea snakes and some river species are more adapted to living in that kind of aquatic lifestyle and environment than others. Yeah.
Actually, I remember one time some years ago, I was on a beach called Kakolem in South Goa, and there was like a little stream inlet going to the beach, and I saw from the distance some kind of moving happening in there, and I had no idea what it was. So I went to take a look, and it was actually a Whitaker's boa. So the konkani is malun, or two-headed snake. That's an interesting one that we can go into at some point, the two-headed snake. But it was really struggling in the water. So obviously they're related to pythons. Pythons actually love to be in water. They will sit submerged for a long time and really enjoy that. In contrast, it seems, from my experience at least, that the Whitaker's boa very much doesn't like being in water. I don't know if anyone else maybe has a similar kind of experience with that they would like to jump into, but if not, we can move to the next question, which maybe I will ask to Benhail, and maybe he can also help me with the pronunciation, because it is in Konkani. Oh, I've just muted you by accident. Sorry, Benhail. Can you see the question from Saili?
Yes. I can see the question with Saili. And
do you want to read it out and then answer it?
So before I get into this, I would just like to add to what you said regarding the Malun and in the water. The Whitaker's boa. Yes, I have noticed that they can hardly swim very well in the water. I mean, vipers, I know vipers struggle. Like, a Russell viper or a saw-scale viper, they just run away. I mean, just move away from water as soon as possible. Yeah, it's interesting. I do not know why the Whitaker's boa cannot really swim, or is not as comfortable in water like a python. But yes, snakes are interesting. We have so much to learn from them. Going to Saili's question. It's super that this question has come to me because recently I posted a post on Facebook regarding the same thing, Zagya Sorop, they call it, or Zagyatso Sorop. It's a very common term in the villages in Goa. And hi Saili. Saili happened to have worked with me for a couple of years in the event industry, and now she's all the way in UK. So Saili was a very interesting person as well. She was terrified of snakes. A couple of times she wanted to give up her job because she knew that I should rescue snakes, and sometimes they used to be with me. So she was really terrified of snakes, and it took a couple of years that exposing her to various kinds of snakes, and finally before she left for UK, she in fact touched the snake that we had just rescued, and she was comfortable with it, and she learned to accept snakes, and she was so much of a phobia that she had about snakes. She could not see a picture of a snake on a screen. Yeah, but anyway, she changed. It took a lot of time, but she changed, and so can all, if you just are willing to learn about these creatures. Now, regarding the Zagyatso Sorop, it's very, very common in Goa, as people keep saying that there's a big Zagyatso Sorop, or Zagyawala Sorop is around. And it's a huge cobra that has, sometimes they say it has hair on it. Sometimes they say that it lives forever. And obviously, all the time they say it protects them. Now, when I was young, I used to bust this myth like anything. I said that snakes can't get hair, they don't have fur, there is no possibility a snake can grow hair on their body. I said, if any hair you have seen on the snake, it could be, dried scales that are stuck onto the snake that have not peeled off properly, but definitely no hair. But they used to be convinced that snakes have hair. Finally, one person called me saying, there is a snake in my house, he's a Zagyatso Sorop, and he has hair, we can see it. I said, okay, where on the snake's body? I like to just be inquisitive. I said, where on the snake's body can you see the hair? He said, it's over the upper lip. I said, wow, this snake is like me. It has a mustache and stuff. So anyway, so I said, let's go and see it. So we went there, and they had an altar. And behind the altar, there was this cobra that was moving around. And behind the altar is full of cobwebs. So the cobwebs are all stuck on the face of the snake. So they saw the cobwebs on the face of the snake and the mouth, and they thought that the snake had hair. Yeah. So the same thing, they say the Zagyatso Sorop has hair on it, which is not true. The thing is that people believe that if the snake is there around their society, around their environment, they do not attack anybody, and the people respect it, vice versa. So they believe that the snake protects them, which is true. The snake protects them by taking care of the rodent population, for example. Yeah, and the snake is a part of the food chain, and any part of the food chain is protecting us indirectly or of the ecosystem. But I used to strongly rebut it. And then I realized that the meaning Zagyets or Sorop or Zagya or Sorop means that a cobra, Sorop is cobra, a cobra from this place. So all snakes would be territorial until we remove them from one place and leave them somewhere else where they have to struggle to survive. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong in the term Zagyets or Sorop. And it would be nice to have that term, have snakes remain in our territory, remain and share space with them. So her question, Sally's question is, how long do snakes live? People say they live forever. Just like people say that the Zagyets or Sorop has hair on the body, snakes don't live forever. Yeah, a cobra, a spectacled cobra will live anywhere between 20 to 25 years, or a king cobra to 30 years, but definitely not forever. Yeah, they have a shorter lifespan than a human for sure. And we need to have these snakes around and live in harmony with them. By the way, I started using this as a nice tool because sometimes I go into a village and I convince the youngsters that, the snake needs to be in the same habitat, learn to live with it. And the youngsters are convinced. But then the elders, no. They say, no, the snake has to go. It can kill us and blah, blah, blah. You just use the term Zagyets or Sorop and then people respect the term and they say, okay, let it be. And it's fair enough. The snake needs to be there. It needs to be a Zagyets or Sorop all their life. Yeah. But yeah, Siley, it does not live forever. It's just a couple of years, 20 to 25 years at most.
Yeah, I think there's a few examples of cobras reaching to be like just over 30 years in captivity. So we guess that in the wild then it'll be a little bit less, but it's a long time. I had a remarkable rescue actually that I remember my father was over from the UK, and we got a call to Paddy. There was one spice farm there. And he said, this cobra has been here for maybe 5 days and it's bothering my wife. And we need to move it. I said, are you sure it's a cobra? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm coming. I came. It was right there by the washing area behind his house. And it was a huge cobra and it was inside a hole. And he said, this cobra has been living here for as long as I can remember, actually. I have no problem with it. But for some reason, the last 5 days, he's been having a go at my wife a little bit. And I asked him what he meant by that. And he said, he's just sitting in his hole and watching her, but it gives her the creeps. So we just need to move him and make him understand that hey, like, you can't do that. It's not fair. We want you to live here, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, but it's inside a hole and it's going to be quite difficult to get it out. We'll probably have to break down the hole, it's not really worthwhile. He said, no, it's okay. Like, it's quite friendly. You can go up and he will come out. And I thought, like, no, this guy is like, for sure, that's not going to happen. But indeed, I went to the hole and I sat there and I said, hey, so you're really pissing off these guys at the moment. You can't really do that. You should move over a bit. And I kid you not, as I was saying that, this thing started to come out of the hole. There was a guy there. My father was there. Annoyingly, he didn't have his camera on. He was trying to get the camera to work, but it didn't work. And then I was there. So there was a lot going on. And still the cobra decided to come out of this perfectly safe hole. And so then I thought, okay, this is a good opportunity. So I just lifted it gently with the snake stick and he was completely calm. Not even the slightest bit of aggression or hooding or anything like that. So I put it into the barrel and we moved it 10 meters down where this guy had built like a little shrine to Shiva inside of his garden area. And then we released it there. And again, as cool as day, the snake came out, no hooding, no aggression, no hissing, nothing. And sort of went a little bit down the garden and that was that. And since that time, that was 3 years ago, he's never called me up again. The snake has clearly never been watching his wife again in the same way as it accidentally must have been back then. And it was an amazing thing for me to experience. And also, I think, for me to watch my dad experience, because that's kind of what it's all about, And it's so cool that there is a tradition actually that can create conservation, because there's so many stories of bad snakes, but actually you do get these stories of good snakes, and actually they're way more accurate than all of these wives' tales that we hear all the time. Yeah, so that was one of my best rescues ever, I have to say. So a few more questions. We'll move on to Sherry. I'll ask to unmute you. From Reggie, what are the common snakes that we'll find near residential areas in Goa?
So, a lot of urban species, like you'll find a lot of pythons, the Indian rock pythons, which happens to be one of my favorite snakes. They're incredible. They're urban giants, I would call them, because they grow huge. They grow really big, and they're beautiful snakes. Uh, then you'll have the crate, which is a venomous snake, and often people mistake a crate. They mistake a crate for a wolf snake, or they mistake a wolf snake for a crate, which can lead to problems because sometimes what happens is when people look at other people rescuing or handling or images of basically any other person rescuing, they think that they can do it because it looks easy, but one has to remember that it looks easy because rescuers have been doing this for years and years, and they've been practicing a lot, and it comes with experience. Identifying different snakes comes with a lot of experience. I'm no expert. I still learn a lot every day, and even identifying snakes, it has taken me a lot of years to identify snakes in the for what they are, like truly identifying them. And yeah, so like I was saying, a lot of people mistake them, and then what they do is they think that they can rescue, and without being accurate, without being sure of the identification of the snake, they go ahead and they rescue it, which is it can lead to a lot of problems. I've read in someone's book also about how a boy got bit on the back by a Russell Viper because he thought it was a python, and he was riding on the bike, and he had the Russell Viper in his hand by head catch, and when the dude braked, it kind of jerked forward, and the Viper bit him. So the reason he had the snake in the head catch is because he assumed it was a python. So identifying snakes can be tricky. Hence, you should always have someone's number on speed dial, have someone's number on your phone who can identify the snake correctly for you. So coming back to the common snakes, yeah. So wolf snake is there, which is often misidentified for a crate, which is venomous. Then you have Russell Viper, like I said, the python. Then you have the kukri, Russell kukri, which is another beautiful snake and non-venomous. Then you also have the wine snake, that you'll often find on trees. And the myth that I've heard about the snake a lot. I've heard this even in school. When I was in school, a lot of teachers would tell me about this. It's because out near my school there's a hospital, and there are trees there, and there are sometimes there are wine snakes on top resting. And the misconception about the snake is that they bore into your heads. They make holes into your heads, or they like to get into your head. They bite your heads, things like that. Now, this myth has only come about because these snakes rest on trees, so they're always above. So when they are, if they are on top, so their face kind of looks something like this itself. It's a very narrow, slender, green color snake, very beautiful, very pretty. They almost glide on trees, and they're very clumsy on streets. They're very clumsy on the road, which is why they often get run over by vehicles. So I feel like this idea, I think a lot of people would also agree with me that the myth about these snakes boring into your head is because they live up in the trees, and they're always above. They'll silently watch you from top. They'll watch your movements and stuff if you pause there. So I heard a lot of my teachers in school. I remember my Portuguese teacher would always tell me about these snakes waiting to get inside, from top. So that is another myth about the wine snake. And then you have the bronze back, which is a beautiful tree snake again. I love them. They are a personal favorite because of the way the glisten, basically. I'm not getting the word. But that's another pretty snake. Then yeah, am I missing any other snake? I mean, just now when I'm talking about it, it's hard to recollect everything. Um, is there anything else I'm missing, Alex? Any other snake, perhaps? Also, there's also the saw-scale viper, which is also a part of the big four. They're very nice. Again, very beautiful snakes, venomous, and they make they make that sound, which is also why people are often afraid of them. Even the Russell viper makes a very hissing sound, sort of, which is somewhat like the whistle of a pressure cooker. Then you have any other snakes? Am I missing anything else, Alex?
I mean, there's a few that I fairly regularly encounter. So, for example, Whitaker's boas. Whitaker's boas tend to be around a lot. They're harmless, but many people think they're not harmless. There's a story that they only come out on Wednesdays and Sundays. I think they use one head on Wednesday and the other one on Sunday. So there's two things about that. Sorry,
Even
say
about
again.
the Whittaker boa, I just recollected. So even about the Whittaker boa, people call it the two-headed snake. I remember my friend's mother. If she's watching, she's going to probably scream at me. But I remember her being mortified when there was this Whittaker's boa in her kitchen. We live in a beautiful place surrounded by lush greenery, and there was a Whittaker's boa, a really small, nice, fat little malun. They call it in Konkani. That was in her kitchen. And she went crazy. She stood on the table. She started screaming. My friend called me up, and then I told my friend. And even back then, my friend was very horrified by snakes. He was horrified by them. So I explained to them, and then they told me, "No, it's a two-headed snake, so it can bite from both ends." And I was like, "No, it's actually a very nice story. I mean, it's very interesting, actually. The Whittaker's boa. So this sand boa has a very thick tail. The end is very thick and looks somewhat like the head. And the reason for this is because I believe through evolution, what has happened is that these snakes are really slow. They're very clumsy. They're very slow. They don't move as fast as a rat snake or a cobra. So, when it comes to defending themselves, they don't really have much at all to defend themselves. So if there's any predator around, what they do is they dig their heads into the sand, or they will basically coil up where their head is protected by their body and the tail is basically out. So what happens is that if there's any predator, bird or something that thinks the tail is the head, they start pecking at the tail, they start attacking the tail, which leaves the head actually safe. The head of the snake remains safe. And then finally, when the predator gives up, they go away, the snake resumes its trail. And that's another. And the snake is very docile. It's very, very, very docile. They barely bite. In self-defense, of course, they will bite, but otherwise, no snake is just going to come chase you around. And I think I saw that somewhere there. That's why I just remember that. No snake ever wants to chase you to get revenge. And snakes don't keep grudges. We should leave all of this only for the movies. No snake likes to keep a grudge against people. The only reason why you may think you're finding a snake around your place very often is because probably the snake lives there. It lives in your area. And if you have killed a snake by, either running over it or you've killed the snake somewhere else and you think that the same snake is your, they call it the, I'm not getting the word, the partner of the snake. People think that the partner of the snake has come back to get revenge on, you killing their mate and stuff like that. That is a big pile of nonsense. Please do not ever believe that. Sometimes if someone tells you next time, that the partner of a snake gets revenge and all, that's rubbish. That should be left in Bollywood and not in real life, because what has happened is it could probably be a snake in the area, or during mating time a lot of these snakes come out, and snakes are quite common around us. You will find a snake everywhere if you're patient enough, if you observe enough. In my college itself, I remember there was a canteen where outside there were huge banyan trees and there were always bronze backs or wine snakes on top. And once, just when I was sitting there with my laptop, there was a wine snake right above us. And I told my friend, I'm like, "Can you see the snake?" And my friend lost the shit. She kept looking. She was like, "No, I can't see anything." I'm like, "Observe. Just keep calm. Just look carefully." Because they adapt so well to their surroundings. They do not want to be seen by us. They do not want to interfere with us. They're just around us because, we have encroached into their forest so much that now they've become urban species. They're just around us all the time. So yeah. So that Malun was one thanks Alex for pointing the Malun out. I forgot about that one. But there are quite a lot of, I actually, if you ask me about common snakes, I feel like a lot of these snakes are very common if you observe enough. Like the checkered keelback is another one that I can recollect now. Checkered keelbacks are always around water bodies. They're water snakes basically. You'll always find them around water bodies. In fact, 2 of them live in my friend's well itself. And instead of my friend being really scared about it, which he used to be, now he's fine with it. He goes for a dip, he sees the snake coming out, he'll jump up. But he lets it live there. He will let it live in the paddy fields over there. He won't disturb it. So checkered keelbacks also are really beautiful snakes. And they do love defending themselves. So if you disturb them, they will bite. But they only bite if you disturb them, if they think you're attacking them, if they think you're a threat. So if ever you're walking anywhere and you just see a snake around you and you just stop, nothing is going to happen. I promise you. I can give it to you in writing. Nothing will happen if you just stand still. You let the snake move on. Let the snake do its business. Do not be frightened and jump around and hop away or try to hop about it. Don't do anything. Just stand still. Even if it's near your leg, if you're standing still, you're not being a threat to it. It will crawl away. It will not want to get in your way. It will not want to do anything to you. It will not want to disturb you. It won't try to bite you. Nothing. If you just stand still.
Yeah, for sure. Very true. Okay, I'm going to rattle through a few questions just very quickly, and then we'll move on to the next one, which I'll send to one of the others. Okay, Rishith is asking, I'd like to know how to identify a venomous or non-venomous snake. Also, can all venomous snakes kill us? So, with regards to identifying a venomous or a non-venomous snake, there is no hard and fast rule. You'll see many different memes or things coming up that will say you can do it in this way because of the eye, for example, or the head shape. They're generally speaking not true. You can't rely on a single rule. Here in India, there are two main types of snakes that are venomous. Those are the vipers and the elapids, which means the cobras and the kraits and the sea snakes, for example. There are ways that you can learn to identify those, but it's very much over time and with experience. So, for example, all of us here are involved in a WhatsApp group, which is an identification group, and that's something where you can send photos, and then you'll get an identification from an expert like us. So that's a really quick fire way to learn about snakes. But really the key to this is experience. You need to spend time and observe and learn. Can all venomous snakes kill us? Well, the first thing is it depends on the venom. So is it highly venomous, moderately venomous, or mildly venomous? Many snakes have just a mild venom, so it's not enough to kill us. Some snakes have a lot of venom. In the case, for example, of the cobra, in many cases, the cobra will bite, but will give a dry bite. So that means that there is no venom given. Actually, all snakes can do this, all venomous snakes. So the best way that I can explain this is that for a snake, venom is kind of equivalent to money is for us. So they need venom in order to catch their food. That's their only mechanism that they have. They don't want to waste it on defending themselves. The point of defending themselves is not to kill something, it's to escape with their life. So they don't want to waste the venom on you, you know, they really don't want to bite you. If you go onto YouTube, there's an amazing video by the Madras Crocodile Bank, which is a slow motion of a cobra mock biting the bare foot of a person. So he's actually striking, but with his chin, because he doesn't want the person to be bitten. So I guess the answer to the question is some venomous snakes can kill us, but all venomous snakes would rather not. It's just us that engage in that. Quickly, do monitor lizards attack or eat snakes by Rita. They can, if it's the right snake, and also they can be eaten by snakes. So if you have an adult monitor lizard, it's pretty much only going to be king cobras and Indian rock pythons, but younger ones will certainly be eaten by a number of snakes. And as opportunistic carnivores, they will eat just about anything that walks in front of them if it's small enough. So for sure, they would also try and eat snakes. Then a question from Antya, Antya in Pune, who actually came down 3 or 4 years ago to my place. Hello, Antya. How far do snakes travel on average? What is their area an individual snake covers, i.e. the size of their habitat? So that depends massively on which snake. For example, king cobras, they will have a very large range. I don't know exactly, maybe Aaron will be able to tell us in some time. I'll go to the next question with Aaron. But there's also other snakes that don't have any kind of a range and just roam around. So for example, a Whitaker's boa that I know has been living in and around my kitchen area now for the last 2 years. I think it's just there as a kind of convenience marriage rather than a range, you know. Ansha, I do remember that you actually have a bamboo pit viper living with you that comes back every now and then, and you coexist amazingly with it, which is super cool. So I don't know about the size of a viper's range, but I guess also as fairly slow moving ambush predators, they're not going to be going very far, I would say. Okay, let's go to Aaron, is it? And then maybe you can add on the king cobra range. And then the next question, I don't know if you can see the next question. This is an interesting one. I've heard a zoologist friend of mine say that the urban population of snakes was kept under control because humans feared them and killed them. And too much conservation will only tilt the balance because of the lack of other predators. Is there any truth in this? Keeping aside your emotions for snakes, of course. That's from someone called Me A1, which I guess is the name of their phone, not the name of them. I'll just say quickly into that. I think probably the main driver of the population is the amount of rats that are there, or house geckos, or other imbalances that we've created as an ecological system that basically is not working. I don't think humans are an effective balancing act for snakes. You can kill as many as you like, more of them will come, as long as there is food and a habitat. So personally, from my perspective, I don't think that there is any effect on people. Aaron, what do you reckon?
What I think is, Alex, from past experiences, and maybe I can talk about two species, and that is the Indian rock python and the king cobra. And when I say king cobra, I mean the Andaman variety of king cobra. What we've seen over the years is that contrary to popular belief, it may not really be the case that as a result of a lot of development and a lot of building and a lot of all these other things that would otherwise anthropogenic factors, basically, that would negatively impact a wildlife species, that it has the same kind of impact on snakes, simply because of what you mentioned earlier on. Number one, that more people would mean more garbage generated. More garbage would then in turn mean more rodents, and then you're kind of pulling the snakes into areas which are urban, as compared to them kind of finding a meal in the wild, which is in a way making things more easy for the snake to actually live in close proximity to. I think I've lost you here, Alex.
You're fine. Still hear you. Carry on.
Okay, all right. So so as far as the pythons are concerned, there've been a couple of studies, if I'm not mistaken, done somewhere in Maharashtra, where they've seen a very healthy population of pythons, actually thriving in areas very closely associated to human beings, like colonies and building colonies and stuff like that. And even in the Andamans, since a lot of the work which involved data collection from king cobras were actually a result of the snakes that I captured in people's homes, what we realized is that I never really saw a king cobra in the wild, but we've got up to about 35 to 40 of them in people's homes, and that's simply because I think the garbage has increased, the rats have increased, the development has increased, and forests have been fragmented and stuff like that. So I don't really know if it's negatively impacting the species like this, for example. So as far as I'm concerned, I think contrary to what we believe, maybe snakes are thriving as a result of our human induced environmental change.
Yeah, agreed. I think definitely this idea of individually killing snakes and controlling their population definitely is probably not true. But the fragmentation and destruction of forests and ecosystems is an effective controlling mechanism on all wildlife, unfortunately. But the effect on that is that we have an increase in the population of rodents or house geckos or whatever, and invariably they're predators, which is going to mean more of cobras, more of Russell's vipers, more of rat snakes, and less maybe of some of the interesting snakes. So Benhail, moving to you, quick question from Gita. Does a snake ever chase anyone and bite?
Yeah, this is a very, very common myth that a snake will follow you home and take revenge, and they will chase you either if you hurt them. Yeah. So this concept is quite detailed, in fact, so that people, they don't sleep at night when they hurt a snake in the wild or in the fields. So firstly, a snake will not chase you to bite you. if you go and stamp a snake or you kill a snake or you injure a snake, the snake is not going to intentionally follow you to bite you and take revenge. It might move in your direction. It's only because it's scared. It might move towards you, but not with an intention to bite you. Yeah, so that can happen. But what Gita meant, I guess, is snake coming to your house and taking revenge. So I used to keep telling people that if you hurt a snake on the road, the snake is not going to stop you and take down your address and follow you home. There is no way it's going to find your house, right? And why has this? How has this been built up? How has this story been built up? It's everywhere. So what happens is if you kill a snake in the wild or you hurt a snake, let's not talk about killing it, but if you hurt a snake, you run over it with your bike or you go in a field and you hurt a snake. When you go home, you happen to see another snake there. Now, it's just a coincidence that the snake has come to probably eat the rodents at your place, or eat the rats, or it's come for the shelter, it's come for the heat or for the warmth, or for the coolness in your house. And you see another snake, and there's a high chance that you would see a snake at home. It's just a coincidence that probably on the same day you have run over a snake on the road. Now, what happens is your family and friends will tell you that, well, you have gone over a snake and hence the snake has come to take revenge, and it is the spouse or it is the same snake. So with a fear, a person does not really, even recollect the color of the snake. If they might have gone over a brown snake, but the snake at their place is a black and white snake, they'll still say, no, the snake that I saw or the snake that I heard was a black and white snake. So this happens with fear. Now, besides coincidence, there's a rare chance that, if a snake is killed in the field and it happens to be a female snake, what happens is the female leaves her pheromones or scent particles on the ground for the male snakes to track her. Now, if these particles get stuck onto, suppose a snake was killed with a stick, for example, and they adhere to the stick and the stick is left outside your house, other male snakes around might come to investigate if there's a female that is in that territory. It's a very rare chance, a possibility, but mostly it's coincidence that you'll find another snake. Yeah, so snakes don't chase you or don't take revenge. If they can bite you when you stamp them or you're killing them or you're catching them, that's when they will bite you. At that moment, they won't come and follow you.
Yes. So I agree completely. I think maybe the story in large part comes from a different part of the world, even because of the black mamba, which is always spoken about as being a snake that can chase you and even outrun you. And that has kind of morphed over the years to be almost any snake. But I've never been chased by a snake. I've met thousands and thousands and thousands of them, and none of them have ever chased me. They've kind of asked me to go away sometimes, but that's not involved them chasing me or me having to run. Yes, now let's have a look on the, okay, Free for All 65 says, is there a source making information available to the general public to help identify them, like posters, etc.? Okay, that's an interesting one, especially at the moment with Benhail, because he's unmuted. I'll just add to this quickly that actually all of us are on this WhatsApp group. I will post it so that you have the links to both the snake identification group and the snake discussion group. I think that's probably one of the best resources at the moment for people being able to find out, because you can contact all of us here today directly and more, some of the most amazing, inspiring and knowledgeable experts on snakes from around this area. And that's a way that you can really learn quite quickly. That's a good resource. There's definitely some resources missing. Benhail, what do you think about that? What are there things that we can do better? Should we be able to better inform people about snakes, or could we better inform people?
So how to identify snakes? To identify a species, you do technical things like a scale count and stuff like that, which a layperson will never get into. Like, nobody's going to count the scales of a snake to see what has entered their house. So the scientific research part is for scientists, for sure. For a layperson, is you identify a snake by the pattern on the body. The color, the shade might differ, but generally the pattern remains the same. Like a Russell viper has oval-shaped markings, or Kratos has bands on it. But still, there are many snakes that have similar patterns on them, like the wolf snake and the crate, and you can't really identify them. We are lucky to be in Goa and in India, where a place where we have something called the Big Four. The Big Four is basically the 4 common venomous snakes that we find around. Like, that's the cobra, the Russell viper, the saw-scale viper, and the crate. Now, if we can identify these 4 snakes, all the other snakes that we find in our localities, whether it's a village or a city or a town, will be non-venomous, except if you're on the Western Ghats or towards the Western Ghats, where you will have some other snakes like the pit vipers or the king cobra, the hump-nosed pit viper, Malabar pit viper. But those are rare encounters for a normal civilian. So if you can learn to identify these 4 snakes by the pattern on their body, that's the cobra, the saw-scale viper, the rustler's viper, and the crate, that would be amazing. Learn to identify them just by the pattern on the body. It's good for a start. However, if you see a snake that does not have these resemblances like these 4 snakes, please do not go to catch it with your hand. It could be a venomous snake. Now, besides that, we have posters that we can share probably on this chat group to help you identify these 4 snakes. And as Alex said, we have a group that, it's a quick group. You just send a picture on WhatsApp to this group. It helps identify a snake. So I think Alex is going to share the links here very shortly. So you post any picture on this group at any time of the day or night. A couple of us are there, the admins, who will help you instantly identify the snake. And if it's found in India or in Goa, definitely will give you a positive answer within a few minutes. Yeah. Or you could just buzz any of us. If we have not given you a response, give us a call, any one of us at any time. We can help you identify it. Now, why do we go out of our way to help you identify the snake? Is because once you identify the snake, you will know about the snake, and then we can guide you as to should it remain in your backyard, should it be moved away from your house and stuff like that. So we will guide you through that process. But first, you need to identify what snake it is. Yeah. Sometimes the snake is in your house and you don't know what to do with it. So if you send us a picture and if it's a rustler's viper, we'll probably guide you how to handle a rustler's viper and get it out of your house, definitely without touching the snake. And then again, if we think it's risky, we'll not even tell you to interfere with it. We'll send somebody to help you out with it. But if, for example, if it's a Whitaker's boa or a rat snake or devoured, we will tell you, how to guide it out of your house and let it be. That's where it should be. So identifying a snake, not only for your information is good, but it's also good for the snake. So Alex happened to start this group, which is amazing. Just post a picture on the group and you'll get a positive response to it as soon as possible. I think that's the best way. I mean, Google is always there, but yeah.
Yeah, in Google, we have the similarity between a wolf snake and a crate, for example, and to somebody without experience, it's very easy to mistake them, and certainly if you have it by a photo. So having this kind of hive intelligence of a number of experts is I think super helpful, because even I am using that group sometimes when I'm sent a snake and I'm not quite sure. So having that extra experience, I guess our combined experience is like well over 150 years probably of snakes between all of us, which is cool. Okay, so we'll move on because we're already running a little bit late, but there's still lots of questions. Rishith, I saw a picture of a snake born with 2 separate heads on the internet. Is that even possible? Yes, it is. Very, very rare. It's the equivalent, I guess, in the human sense of Siamese twins. So it's a very, very rare event. Most likely they won't survive, but they can, and they have been known to survive and have been known to very rarely be found. But it's not something like it's a genetic mutation and a negative one. It's not that it's a species or anything like that.
That's two-headed side.
Two-headed, yeah. My assumption is a 2-headed snake, as in not like the malun, but like a 2-headed snake like this. Simply because he says, I saw a picture of a snake born with 2 separate heads on the internet. So I've also had a lot of these sent to me in the past. Sometimes it'll be a corn snake, or it'll be a rattlesnake with 2 heads. I guess it's that. If it's not, then do send us a message and say different heads or different heads. Charan, this is a very good question. Aaron, I'll chuck this one to you. In case if bitten by a snake, what would be the immediate steps? I sometimes go on hikes in forests alone and I have a fear of getting bitten by a snake and having no one around for support.
All right. So, Alex, in response to this question, and in comparison to other countries, what we have over here in India is what's called a polyvalent anti-serum, which means it's one medicine that covers or counteracts the effect of about 4 venomous snakes, as Benhail rightly mentioned earlier on, which are known as the big 4. Now, we have a few venomous snakes as well, which are not part of these big 4, which also live in areas in the forest. And since you mentioned, going on treks and stuff like that, it's quite possible that if you're bitten by a venomous snake, it could be one of these. However, when I say these, I'm ideally looking at species like pit vipers and coral snakes, which you find in the very deep forests of Goa, for example. But either ways, there is no specific anti-venom designed to counteract the effect of these forest species. So it's dealt with in a very different way when it comes to them. In many cases, no anti-venom is administered in these cases, and when it does come to the big four venomous snakes, I don't really suggest any form of first aid from my point of view and my experience, simply because many of the methods that have been suggested earlier on in regards to first aid have been outdated, and methods that have been used by Western countries, which don't really apply to either the snake species found in India and Peninsula India and Goa, since we're talking about this, and also simply because it kind of worsens the position that you're putting the victim into. Now, when I'm talking about these kind of things, I'm talking about cutting the wound and manipulating the wound and trying to suck out venom and tying a tourniquet and all these kind of things make the situation much more worse, simply because we have for one, a lot of the vipers that have a hemotoxic venom, or kind of a tissue damaging sort of a venom. So when if for example you get bitten on your hand or you get bitten on your leg, and your intention in tying a tourniquet is to simply restrict the flow of venom to other parts of your body, what's happening in this case is you're restricting the venom to a smaller area. So that very concentrated venom is now in a very small area, as otherwise what would be in a bigger volume of body and tissue and blood and so on. Number one. Secondly, when you do reach the hospital, what's going to happen is that the doctor is going to have to remove that tight ligature or tourniquet that you're tying, which only means that now there's a sudden surge of venom into your system, which anti-venom cannot ideally deal with so effectively. Then the other thing is that things like sucking out venom is also incorrect, simply because you could have a small little damaged gum yourself if you're a person trying to save another person from the envenomation per se. So what's going to happen is now you're going to actually transfer a bit of venom to yourself, and at the same time not completely take out the venom from the other person, simply because that's not how venom works. When the snake bites you, it's not superficially there on the outside of the wound, as compared to being completely just dissolving in the blood so rapidly. It's very similar to putting a drop of ink in a glass of water, and if you see how it splits, that's really what the venom is doing in your body. So you can't really pull that out. So I don't really suggest any first aid. What we do suggest, and what the clinicians will suggest, is to go by a procedure which is called doing it right. When right really means is, when you get bitten by a snake, you don't need to know which snake bit you, simply because there's a polyvalent venom. Either ways, they don't give you the venom besides doing a test, which is a 20-minute whole blood clotting test to actually establish the effect, the presence of venom in your body. Doing it right basically is we go by the letters itself, RIGHT. So right would be, first you would reassure the victim if it's somebody else who's been bitten. Secondly, you immobilize the bitten limb, which means you don't you make sure that it doesn't move too much, because the movement will stimulate the flow of venom through your body. G and H in the right would mean go to hospital, and the T is tell the doctor. So basically, if you do these three things, make sure the victim doesn't panic, reach the hospital as soon as possible. But that doesn't mean run to the hospital. Neither does it mean if you don't have a four-wheeler, that you wait till a four-wheeler comes, because simply you can take a person on a bike also very effectively. Don't panic. Reach the hospital, reassure the victim, immobilize the bitten limb, get to hospital immediately, and tell the doctor. And I think that should pretty much sort you out. And also, especially since you're living in Goa, because we have two districts, and both the districts have district hospitals which have anti-venom and trained doctors to administer it. Please do not try and catch the snake, because the doctor doesn't need to see what snake has bitten you, although it may help if you have a photograph. This is completely not advisable, simply because catching the snake or trying to do anything to bring the snake to the hospital for identification only results in many times in additional bites, which can be avoided and only complicate the matter. So that's what I would say in response to that question asked. I hope I've answered the question.
Yeah, I think so. We'll move to a quick one from Gome, which is, do mongoose eat king cobras? The answer to that probably is that they will eat small king cobras, but they're certainly not going to be eating adult ones because they're simply too big. I remember one example actually of a king cobra meeting with a mongoose, and this was from Yatin Kalki. He was at the Agumbe Rainforest Research Center, and basically there was a standoff for some time. But after a while, they both moved their own way. I think it just doesn't make sense for them to be conflicting with each other. Going down to Louise, she wants some beautiful observations that have been made in the experience with regards to snake evolutionary specialization. So yeah, there's a few interesting ones here. For example, as you say, the flying snakes. Maybe we can move to Sherry and you can talk to us a little bit about flying snakes because they're rather remarkable, or anything else.
Yeah, so the all-neck flying snake is actually a very pretty snake. Even if you look at the colors, it's a gorgeous snake. And yes, they do. So it's called a flying snake, but like Louise has also mentioned that it doesn't really fly, it glides. And it's simply because it flattens itself out and it sort of lets the snake move from trees within the trees. When it comes to other snakes having such abilities, I'm just thinking about something right now because um, I think we can talk about with respect to evolutionary aspects. I think talking about just how they camouflage themselves so wonderfully is quite mind-boggling. Like a wine snake. So I used to really wait for pictures by Mr. Charan Desai. He used to put a lot of pictures where he would say, spot the ghost, which is something I used to always look forward to because it used to always help me observe and just increase observing skills where you could see how well snakes have adapted and camouflaged with their surroundings. For example, the wine snake, the green wine snake, which is mildly venomous. This snake is a tree dwelling snake and it blends so well with the tree. Like the mouth just looks like leaves. It stays still. And what I have personally observed at college itself, which really blew me away, was the movement. So the snake will stay really still, and when the leaves are shaking, if there's little wind and the leaves are sort of moving, it will slowly move along with the wind as well, along with the leaves as well. And it's so hard to spot them. It's so hard to realize that that's a snake and not just a part of the tree, not just a leaf. And even when it comes to pythons also camouflage so well with their surroundings. Most times people do not really observe them. Like most people will not, like, I'm sure outside your home there are snakes. It's just that they have adapted so well to their surroundings over the course of time that it's so hard to sort of see them unless you're really looking for them. And that's one thing that I can think of so far. I mean, now I'm still trying to recollect things.
No, I
Then
think that's probably good because we still have a lot of questions coming in,
yeah, we can go
which
to
is cool. Yeah, we can run through a couple of more. I just want to get into what Pranay has said, which is really important. Pranay is a entomologist, so he studies insects. One explanation I can think about with regards to ecology, as we were speaking earlier, is that when a niche is open, it is bound to be occupied by another competing individual of the same species. So this goes in the case of, for example, killing a snake in an urban area and controlling its population. So there's always that many snakes that if you take one away, either you kill it or you rescue it, it will be replaced by another snake because there's simply so many of them there. So this is a really important thing with regards to snake rescue because we shouldn't be moving snakes a long way from where we catch them. It doesn't make sense because another one will take its space. If anything, the only way that we can really do this is, as you said earlier, Sherry, with coexistence, to really learn to understand them and to be able to keep out of their way as they keep out of ours. But certainly we can't rescue all the snakes and go and move them out of villages because they'll very soon be back. And we certainly can't kill them all either. We'll just end up with lots and lots of few snakes and not many of all the others. Charan, I'll stay with you, Sherry, for this question. Charan, if we run over a snake by accident by car or bike and the snake is still alive or hurt, is there anything we can do to save it? What do you reckon about that?
I think Benhail should answer this question because he comes across a lot of snakes that get run over.
Cool.
Yeah, okay.
Benhail,
Hi.
you want to answer that one then?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, if you see a snake that's injured, of course you call a rescuer. One of the, like, you can call either any one of us which are on the screen right now, or there are a number of rescuers that are ethical. You can call them, and they will decide on whether the snake is fit for treatment. I mean, most times snakes can be treated. You know, if it's the end of the tail that has been run over or been injured, it can be treated and it can get back to a healthy condition. There are very rare cases, you know, when I've seen the lungs, you know, popping out of the snake and the lung has collapsed and stuff like that. Then it's a very sad situation. The most painless thing to do is euthanize it, which most vets won't do around here. So if I come across such snakes, I leave it up to nature. Just leave it back in the swamp or wherever there's a green area close by. But we try our best. I mean, Alex has rescued quite a few pythons stuck in a net. Even I have. If there are minor injuries like the skin has been cut or the jaw has been displaced or jaw has been broken, all these things can be fixed. But sometimes injuries are really way too bad. And the best is to leave them up to nature. But however, if you see a snake that is still alive and injured on the road, please give us a call. Give any one of us a call. We'll guide you to the next step. Many people call me, like recently I had a call of a dog-faced water snake at Pato, and they said, please come and take it. And I said, what is the condition of the snake? They said it's run over. I said, is it moving? Is it alive? They said, we don't know. You come and check. So what happens, we're really busy and we might ask you to probe it a bit. So we asked him, take a stick, touch it, move it a bit, see if it twitches its tail. And the snake was dead. So if it's a dead snake, I mean, we wouldn't have the time and resources to come and help you move a dead snake off the road. But if it's alive, for sure, give us a buzz, give us a ping. We'll guide you to the next steps.
Yeah, super cool. Thank you for that. Next one. There's a few. Do dogs instinctively know if a snake is poisonous or not? I'll just go through that very quickly. I think, first of all, Indian breed dogs know more about snakes than pedigree breed dogs. If you have a pedigree dog, they're more likely to act stupid around snakes, it seems. Do they know the difference between, say, a rat snake or a viper or a cobra? My personal experience is that they don't. They're just wary about all of them. I have 6 dogs, and obviously they come across snakes quite often, and they treat them all relatively similar, which is to say with respect. They will sometimes stupidly chase them. Honestly, if they do and they get bitten, then it's their fault. You know, the snake was here first. That's how I see it, quite honestly. Then a question from Melisha: what's the story between Nagmani, which is always showcased in the Bollywood movies? I'm gonna have to pass that one on, I guess, to Aaron.
Okay. So Nagmani, once again, is another story that's been propagated by Bollywood a lot. And Nagmani, if I know the legend well, is a kind of a diamond that exists on the snake's head, which is really, you know, difficult to find and difficult to procure. And the snake at times is supposed to be a very, you know, a dangerous one, which is not easy to, you know, kind of get this thing. But one simple common thing that I can just tell you in the most simple way possible is that all of us are snake handlers, keepers, rescuers, and stuff like that. And if something like this really existed, we would have been rich guys. Number one. Secondly, the one thing that I can think of for sure that could have fueled this kind of misconception and belief is that many a times when a snake is not in a capacity or a position to shed its skin completely as it would like to, that, you know, even a little bit of scale that kind of remains somewhere along the head or in the neck region or something, you know, could possibly fuel this kind of a belief of a stone, simply because, you know, a skin that is not attached to the snake and is transparent, you know, when light passes through it, you will get that kind of iridescent color thrown off, or the rainbow kind of, you know, pattern that could be thrown off. And in certain lights, yeah, you know, it's possible that somebody already scared of snakes, not wanting to go too close to investigate or look very clearly, could mistake this for being, you know, a stone on the head. But besides that, snakes don't have any stones on the head. There's no Nagmani. There's no such thing. Absolutely false as a belief.
Wicked, very good. Okay, a question from Anil. Is antivenom readily available at all hospitals? I heard there's a shortage at most times. I'll answer that one quickly. The answer is there should be, but as you allude to, or you've heard, there sometimes isn't. I think the safest thing to say is that Goa is a small state, which means we have an advantage. I would suggest to anybody that's been bitten by a snake to go directly to one of the major hospitals. If you go to Margao or you go to the GMC in Panjim, there will be antivenom available for sure. Whether or not there will be an expert there exactly at the time is to be seen, but there should be like medical experts that are there to help, at least on call, and then that will be able to arrive. So it's good that Goa is a small state because it makes it more accessible. Just as a thing, if you get bitten by a snake, it's not going to kill you straight away unless you get anaphylaxis. So unless you're allergic to the venom, which can also happen to a peanut or a bee sting or whatever, then as long as you remain calm, you have quite some time to be able to get to the hospital if you need to, which you will need to. So yeah, being in a small state, that means we're very connected. Kind of brings us to the next question. I don't know about you guys actually, but the question is, have you guys ever been bitten? And what was your first thought after it? Okay, so for me, I've been handling venomous snakes now for quite a long time. So when I was 14, 15, I started. I'm now 29. In that time, I've handled literally hundreds of species from around the world. I've never been bitten whilst handling or rescuing a snake. To now, I think all of us accept that even with the most understanding, it's an active risk with the job and you can never mitigate it completely. But to now, I have not been bitten in any way during a rescue or anything like that. I have once been bitten by a hump-nosed pit viper as I was walking where I live in my forest. It was remarkably painful. And it's one of these snakes that don't have an antivenom. So actually in this instance, what I did is I consulted a few doctors because I'm very lucky to have, as part of my friends, some really amazing toxicologists and specialists in this field. And I worked with one local doctor who treated me symptomatically. This is only possible because I am somebody who's very interested in snakes, and I knew that the hump-nosed pit viper was one of the less medically significant snakes. Now, honestly, if you are bitten by any snake, including by a hump-nosed pit viper, my suggestion would be to go to the hospital. Definitely it's helpful to know if you've been bitten by a hump-nosed pit viper or by a bamboo pit viper or by a Malabar pit viper, because these are three species that aren't covered by that polyvalent antivenom. So yeah, I don't know if Benhail or Aaron or Sherry, you want to add anything to that? Have you guys ever been bitten? I don't know, actually.
Well, in my case, I don't remember ever being bitten by a venomous species, but when it comes to non-venomous ones, we tend to be a little bit, less cautious because, even if something does happen, then it's not so bad. And then there are also times when you have to go for, rescues where you're rescuing snakes from nets and stuff like this, and you're all by yourself. And then again, it's always, I don't really, there's never been a venomous snake in my opinion, but a couple of rat snakes, checkered keelback here and then. And yeah, that's about it. But I guess it comes with the job.
Yeah. Sherry, Benhail, have you guys been bitten?
Yeah. So I miss. Okay, Benhail can go ahead.
Well, come on, Sherry, go for it.
No, you go for it.
I have been bitten by venomous snakes, and the bites have always been my fault. And this is once while I was handling a Russell viper when I was young, and I had had the head pinned down, and it had its intestines popping out. It was an accident case. Somebody get poked it, and the lung was popping out. So I wanted to just push it back in and apply some healthy oil and stuff like that on it. So in this case, I pinned it down with the stick, and I didn't want to exert too much of pressure on the head because I didn't want to distress the snake any further. And then it turned around and one of its fangs pierced my finger. You can see the small mark here. Yeah, but that's how it happened. Now it's totally my fault. A snake bite is always the victim's fault, always. And what happened here was I could have used various other methods. I was young at that time. I could have used a tube to secure the head. I could have had assistants with me. It was a big female Russell viper. So all these cautions and safety measures were neglected, and hence the bite. So yeah, bites do happen, mistakes happen all the time. We need to be very careful in this field because if an accident happens, it can be fatal, and the only person to blame is yourself and not the snake for sure. So caution is exerted at all points of time now during rescues and relief and treatment of snakes. And as Alex said, if you get bitten by a snake, it does not mean you're going to die anytime soon. There is venom, anti-snake venom, quite easily available in Goa. I know quite a few hospitals that have it in stock. So it's very good that that these hospitals have anti-venom in stock, and not like other snakes. They don't have to search for it. There were rumors some years back, that there's a shortage of anti-venom, but definitely not now. There is no shortage of anti-venom. And if you're bitten by a snake, you do first aid, which Aaron explained some time back. Do it right, which is hardly anything, and rush to a hospital. Again, do not waste time. Rush to a good hospital, which I would suggest a district hospital. They will treat you for it, and you will be perfectly fine in a couple of days. Yeah, so snake bite is like any other accident. It is nothing to be feared much of, unless you're again fooling around with the snake or you're not taking precautions. But yes, you can survive a snake bite pretty easily. It's painful. It's painful for sure.
Yeah, it's very painful. I don't recommend it to anyone. And yes,
Yeah.
It was my fault. I stepped on it, and my first thing was apologizing to it because it must have been very painful to be stepped on also. Sherry?
Alex, on this
Yes.
on this note, I would just like to add a small little point. Simply because as you may know, and a lot of people may be aware or they may not be aware, India is really the snakebite capital of the world, so to say. Contributing to about maybe 58,000 deaths annually as of last year. And what we've realized now is a lot of these people belong to a new section of society wherein they don't really need to be bitten by snakes, simply because they're not being bitten as a result of an occupational hazard or working in the fields or plantations, and it's just purely a result of messing around and fooling with the snake. And this also, on this note, I would like to also say something about all to the rescuers, and especially the newer rescuers, who I would think really they really need to exert a lot of caution when they're doing what they're doing, and also realize the whole concept behind a rescue and what really is a rescue, when you need to touch the snake, when you don't need to touch the snake. Because in many cases, when you don't need to touch the snake and you actually do it, that can also result in a bite which could be avoided. And living in Goa, like you have mentioned before, and like Benhail has said also, since it's a small state and we are very easily connected to the medical facilities and everything. In spite of all these things, there are still people who die as a result of not taking antivenom and going to our local faith healers and tantrics and mantrics and shamans, so to say, with all these zado and palo and all the things that they do, wherein it's really important to note that you're wasting valuable time when you should actually be going to the hospital. So even though we live in a small state, and even though we are very easily connected to the hospitals both in the north and south district, this thing really needs to be driven hard into our brains, and become part of very basic and common knowledge, that when you get bitten by a snake, irrespective of whether it may be venomous or not venomous, don't be the judge, and definitely don't go for any herbal remedy or tantric, mantric and zado palo and all this, simply because it's only anti-venom that can save you from a venomous snake bite if you are envenomated by that snake. Yeah,
I totally agree with Aaron. Most snake bites happening nowadays is because of snake handlers handling them wrong. If you see about rescues, the term rescuer is a very weird term. That people go on, the show business and call themselves rescuers. Very, very few snakes actually need to be rescued. And even if a snake really needs to be rescued, a very small percentage of that actually needs to be free handled. Yeah. So if we rescuers maintain a distance from snakes and from their fangs, the snake bite count should drop drastically.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to quickly butt in on this one to say thank you guys for all of your comments, because there have been loads of them. We will have to stop taking them from now because we still have a few to go through. So if anyone posts any more questions from now, then we probably won't have time to answer them. One has just come in. So Militia, your final question, we'll go for that one. But then after that, we'll have to stop it because it's already been more than enough time, but it's great that there's so many questions. We've also got some YouTube questions to run through. So we have a few YouTube questions now. Quickly, would love to learn more and gain some practical experience. That's not so much a question, but great. I want to know if a green vine snake's bite hurts. Okay, I can answer that one because I've been bitten once by a green vine snake. And the answer is not so much, but it depends on how it bites you. It's mildly venomous, but it's quite unlikely to envenomate you. More likely is that you will hurt the vine snake because it has a very fragile mouth. So if you've got to the point where it's striking at you, chances are you're going to be injuring the snake. The snake certainly isn't really going to be injuring you. So that's that one. Antja asked how far the snakes travel on average. We actually answered that one because she posted it later here. Nandini asks, what do shield tail snakes eat? They have such a tiny head. I guess it depends on the species, but it's going to be mainly like earthworms and like maybe small skinks and stuff like that. Am I right, guys?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, small lizards
Yeah,
also.
they're fossorial subterranean snakes. So yeah, that's what they're pretty much feeding on. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And Lincoln City or Coast here on Central Oregon coast. Hello from all the way over there. Only garter snakes. However, we have huge rats, etc. And we just had a huge forest fire. Okay, so forest fires are one of these things that affect snakes a lot because generally speaking, they live on the ground or subterranean or in the trees. So they can't get away. Actually, most animals are affected massively by fires. Over in you guys in Oregon, you're supposed to have fires. Here in Goa, we're not supposed to have fires really. So most of the fires here are set. It's not a part of the natural ecology. Which is important to note, I think. Okay, a couple more. The treatment and rescue of injured snakes and the release is a huge process. So what about recovery time and where do you treat them and is the government supportive? Interesting question. Does someone want to touch on that quickly? Yeah, I mean, I can. So on a basic level, there are no particularly good facilities for this around. There are a few specialist wildlife rehabilitators, but they are a long way away from here. Bangalore and Pune, I think, roughly are the closest, or Gombe. There's nothing really in Goa that's a proper rehabilitation center that can deal with this. This is a big problem, actually, because there's a lot of animals that end up being injured, and most of the time it's because of human activity, not because of some injury from another animal. It's because it's been hit by a car or it's been stuck in a fishing net or whatever. In my case, I either hand them over to the forest department or in some cases I do treat them myself for a limited period of time. Oh, there was a small baby somewhere. Yes. So like at the moment, for example, there is one python that I have which was stuck in a fishing net. Now it had completely ripped its body open. And in this case, like it's clearly the human's fault because we left the fishing net there. So I'm actually rehabilitating that. I still have some of my old equipment from when I was in the UK, and very rarely, like in this kind of an occasion, I will work to rehabilitate it because I have a huge amount of experience in this kind of stuff. So it gives the snake a chance. I will say that obviously there's very strong wildlife and environment laws, and one of those laws is that we shouldn't be harming, killing, interfering with, catching Indian wildlife. So that actually goes for all four of us. All four of us technically are breaking those rules. Which is definitely something that needs to be looked at. Now, snake rescue in Goa and snake rescue anywhere is very important, but for reasons like Benhail and Cherry were both saying, it's not so much the snake rescue as the education and the rehabilitation of the humans rather than the snakes. So yeah, that I think is a really an important one that somehow needs to be engaged with the government, that we can create a system that works, perhaps like a 112 style system, where if there's a snake rescue call, it can be sent in directly to a central government location, and that they can then allocate the nearest rescuers. I know something like that is meant to be there at the moment, but it doesn't work particularly well. I also think that private rescuers like us should somehow have the opportunity to get a license through the forest department. Now, there is a demand for snake rescue all over Goa because snakes are going into people's houses. Not all of the snake rescuers in Goa are ethical. So, for example, there's a lot of people that charge a lot of money. There's a lot of people that give out misinformation. There's a lot of people that deliberately trick people into situations. So that is a big problem. As long as the forest department do not license all of the rescuers that they allow to operate in Goa, that problem will continue. As will the black market for snakes, for example, being smuggled into either Chinese medicine or being smuggled into the wildlife trade. All of these things are very real. So yes, I think it's really important that somehow the government are able to start working more alongside us, and they already do an amazing job with the resources that they have, because they really struggle in some cases to be able to achieve all of their missions. And yeah, despite that, there's a lot of us here that are ethical and that really have a lot of experience, and we're really prepared to help. We're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this because we have a passion, you know. So yeah, I think the government is supportive to an extent, but we have to keep working alongside them and pushing them and ourselves. And maybe we can set up a system in Goa that will be more effective to get this snake rescue efficient and a valued service. Does anyone have anything to add to that one? Aaron, you're muted.
I'd actually like to add to something. It's not this,
Okay.
but I think it would be very helpful to all those who are viewing, especially if they have pet like dog. I think a lot of people lose their beloved pets, their dogs, because of snake bites as well. And I think it's very important that people start training their dogs to stay away from snakes. And this is something that can be done by having a rubber snake. You can have a rubber snake and try to train your dog to stay away from it. You can use the rewarding method. You can use different methods, but it's very important that people start training their animals to stay away from snakes and just even other wildlife. But since we're on snakes, I would like to say to stay away from snakes, because a lot of snakes also get killed because of our pets. A lot of our pets get killed because of the snakes, the conflict between them. So if people at home, start training their dogs to stay away from snakes by using a rubber snake or anything that looks similar, by rewarding them, by training them, then I think that would also help their dogs to know what to do when they are confronted by a situation like this. When they are in a situation like this, they will stay away, they'll alert you, but they won't go ahead and attack the snake, which will help the snake, will help the animal as well, and in turn it will just help reduce the conflict a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say something in regards to a message that I saw earlier on, where the same question was asked, and then it was followed up by another question where the question was, what about vets? So in response to that, and vets and treating wildlife, the issue is that there may be many vets who are very much in a position to be able to handle that kind of a situation. But as Alex has mentioned before, we have very strict wildlife laws in the country, like the Wildlife Protection Act and stuff like this, wherein even being in possession of a wild animal can amount to hunting and poaching and all those kind of things. So in this regard, there are many vets who are not really directly associated to the government, in the sense that they're not government vets, but they are in a capable position to deal with the case, who are kind of not really sure whether they should tamper with this thing, or in this case even uh, treat the snake, simply because there's a very strong possibility that the authorities can come and penalize them for even tampering with it, simply because it's a wild animal. So whilst there are many vets that can handle the case very effectively, many of them are not really sure if they should. And many a times tell us directly that please don't get any wildlife to us, because we're not going to touch it, simply because we've had problems in the past. Or failing which, please get a letter from the forest department saying that they are allowing us to treat this particular wild animal. So that's in response to other vets and how they can be effectively used.
Benhail, anything you want to add on this one?
It's just that we all need to learn to live in harmony with wildlife, whether it's a snake, whether it's a mountain lizard or a crocodile. We all learn to share the same place with them. earlier, like when I just started off with this awareness campaigns, like 18 years back, I used to tell people like, do not kill a snake, call the forest department. Do not kill a snake, call us. And gradually we started getting a huge number of rescue calls, and from there it moved on to like, do not call us. Do not call us. Let the snake be. Yeah. So that's where we should be at. Learn to live and appreciate the nature around us. And rescue is very, very rarely required. Most of the time, we're going to please people, or we're going to rescue the people who are thinking that the people are threatened. Yeah? We're never rescuing a snake. Rarely there is a situation, where a snake is stuck in a net or it's fallen in a dry sump that needs rescue. Yeah. So let us try to learn to define rescue properly and rescue only when required. Other times we need to learn to live in harmony, and the only way we can learn to live in harmony with them is by having knowledge about them.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. So the main job for me as a rescuer, I feel, should be that I'm actually helping people to understand a bit about snakes and to make them safe. My job should not be to remove snakes from that place, because we actually know, if anything, it makes problems worse. So if my job as a snake rescuer has gone well, then it should be that I'm not needed anymore, that people have the ability to look after the situation themselves. And maybe they call me if there's a cobra stuck in a fishing net, or something serious. But I agree, most of the rescues we have, they're not really necessary. Right, a couple more, because there's still a few to go through. How to differentiate between a snake bite from a venomous snake to a non-venomous snake is a difficult one. There's nothing really hard and fast that can be said about that. Now, obviously, venomous snakes, they have fangs, whereas normal snakes have a number of teeth, lots and lots of teeth. So if you're bitten by a normal snake, you'll normally see that there's a few markings. If you're bitten by a venomous snake that's successfully envenomated, then you'll see that there's normally 2 marks. There can be a couple more kind of peripheral marks, but normally those 2 are there. I would still say, in any case, if you think you maybe have been bitten by a snake, regardless of whether it's venomous or not, then head to hospital, because you'd rather be safer than sorry in this instance. Normally venomous snakes hurt, so because it hurts a lot. But for example, there's things like kraits. They have a neurotoxic venom, which is not actually apparently that painful. I don't know, I've not been bitten. But yes, in the case of a krait, for example, it might not be immediately apparent that you've been bitten by a venomous snake, which might make you think, okay, I'll have a cup of tea and whatever. Don't do that. If you think you've been bitten, then go to hospital. Join the WhatsApp group, and then you can also learn to differentiate between the two, because then you can be sure. Like if 100% it's a rat snake that's bitten you, then that's a different story. Okay, what do you think about venom? Is it a good defensive strategy, or do you think it's more of a digestive enzyme and not intended to be defensive at all? Personally, I think it's a bit of both. Sherry, what do you reckon?
I as well think it's a bit of both. I think it's, I agree with you. I also believe that. So the venom that is usually used is I think that usually for, through evolution, I think it's just mainly for their prey. But then again, when it comes to defending themselves, if they were not venomous, I don't think they would do a good job by defending themselves from people. It's because they have venom. People are, like most people would leave them alone and stay away, and like you said, call people for rescues. But yeah, that's what I think. I think it's a bit of both. It's there because it's there. People kind of leave most venomous snakes alone, or they would like kill them, which is again an entirely different thing. But then again, I think it's for prey as well. Mostly it's for prey because that's how without the venom, they would not be able to kill. Like the pythons, they constrict their prey. They don't have venom, hence they constrict their prey. They suffocate their prey. Kraits can't do that. So kraits have venom. So that's what I think. I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah, very much agreed. I guess we'll all be in agreement on that one. And another question, how do snakes reach the house roof? Can they crawl the wall so high? Yes. Aaron or Benhail, you have anything on that one?
Yeah, so Melissa, so snakes can climb. They're good climbers. Like most snakes can climb, besides the heavy ones. pythons, rat snakes, wolf snakes. They all can climb, so they're good climbers. There's a small crevice between the pipe and the wall, and they'll take a grip and they'll climb up. As I said, I've caught snakes on the third floor of people's houses there. So snakes can climb.
Yeah, I would also say that they tend to climb for a reason. So the reason they come into houses is because it's full of food. Yeah, very often we'll have squirrels, for example, or rats nesting in there. And that is the absolute perfect meal for a whole variety of snakes, from cobras right the way through to rat snakes, pythons, montane trinket snakes. I've even caught Whitaker's boas in roofs, and Whitaker's boas are supposed to be ground snakes. So yeah, actually snakes can climb really, really well. I think it's a lot to do with their evolution, you know. It's a good one for them. Anyone else has anything to say? I think there's one more question down the bottom. One more from YouTube. Haven't they been burning land in a part of Goa near Panjim recently? Why? Quite possible. I don't know. Maybe someone from Panjim knows where. This is Kate Byrne is asking. I know in the south that they're mainly burning to clear agricultural areas and this kind of stuff. Sometimes it seems really quite mindless, like they just want to set fire to plateaus because they don't want the dry grass to remain. I'm not really too sure. I've always asked myself this one as well. Certainly fires are not a native part of the ecoregion here. So if you go to certain parts of the world, there is a natural fire season. That is now being exacerbated massively by the climate crisis that we have so wonderfully created for ourselves. But in this part of the world, there shouldn't be any fires, so they're all human induced. Does anyone know why there's so many fires being set?
Yeah, so the fire, as you said, Alex, that's for clearing either the grass after the monsoons. It's the cheapest and the fastest way for people to clear the grass, the wild grass and weeds. So that's basically done to clear it for agriculture purposes. And sometimes for aesthetics, people don't like to see all the bushes and the grass growing wild. And once it's dry, they just light fire, it all catches fire. Very rarely people intentionally light fire to keep snakes away and to kill the snakes that are supposed to be hiding in the grass or in the bushes. So yeah, it's all a very bad thing. It affects the population of snakes, turtles, birds, and everything else that goes around in that area. But essentially, just to clear, it's the fastest and cheapest way to clear the wild weed and grass. It's pretty bad. Yeah, it's happening in fields these days. It's happening on the hillside, everywhere actually in Goa.
Yeah, it's having a big impact, like also on like the groundwater table, the increased movement towards this kind of dry, deciduous environment. So the impact on us is just going to be that we're going to have less water and more heat, which is not good, I don't think. Anyone else have anything to add to that one? No? Okay, last one. This is the last one, guys. This is an interesting one. Do snakes sleep? Okay, I'll leave that one to you guys. Who wants to answer that as the last question?
They do. I mean, snakes sleep, but yeah, since they don't have eyelids, we don't see them sleeping. So they sleep and their eyes are open. They don't have eyelids, so we don't have the impression of them sleeping. But all just take rest. Sorry,
Sherry?
No, I said that, all creatures need rest. All living creatures need rest. Each one of them needs rest. It's how they basically gather their energy to either hunt or find food for themselves, to prey on other creatures. So all living creatures need rest.
Yes, so I guess then it's down to kind of what we, or how we think of as sleep. How do we quantify it? I guess it's something that you're more likely to see mammals and birds doing in the way that we understand. Other animals just rest, like you say, Sherry. So snakes will go into a period after they've eaten, for example, where they'll rest. They'll go into kind of dormancy. If you go to colder parts of the world, then you will see even snakes hibernate for months at a time. There's an amazing species of little viper in Europe that is found inside the Arctic Circle. Imagine that. It's a cold-blooded animal. But it's able to live inside the Arctic Circle by spending even up to 6 months or more in hibernation. So yeah, the answer is yes, they sleep, but probably not in the sense that we consider sleep. Anyone else? Any sleep stories? I've actually caught a snake once that was basically sleeping. It was a python, and it had probably eaten a few days previously. It was inside a drain, but it did not move at all when I came up to it. So it seemed, yes, despite the fact that its eyes were open, because it had, obviously, snakes don't have eyelids, it was really in a state of bliss of sorts. So I think, guys, it's going to be really good to wrap up, because it's been a long night, but it's been a really cool night, and I'm really thankful to all of you guys for joining me and us here to talk about this, because it's going to hopefully have given people an opportunity really to understand a little bit more, to ask some of these crazy questions, and to maybe just shift their opinions a little bit about snakes and give them a chance. I want to say that, yes, please write to us if you have any comments or feedback or suggestions. There's lots of links posted, so you can get in touch with us through there. Either us as individuals or Thus as an organization, who do this Monday Night Fix every Monday, and also host a number of other critical thinking and discussion panels, which are well worth looking up. Please do donate to them, because it really helps them to keep this platform going, and it's really an important platform. So yes, thank you guys very much indeed. Maybe I'll leave you guys with a parting note. Does anyone have a parting note to say? And then we can sign off. Sherry?
I'd like to say that I come from a family that is mortified by snakes. They are horrified by the fact that I like snakes and I've dealt with snakes. So, you probably also, those are viewing, I'm sure you come from a family like mine where they do not tolerate snakes at all. They probably can't tolerate you doing anything around them as well. But I'd like all those that have attended today to, maybe try and change their perception, right? So from my mother not being, I remember getting a tattoo of a python, and from my mother not being able to look at my back for like 3 months, today, if there is a snake around near the school, she will make it a point to let me know what it was, or she will mention it to me. So, it's that I don't expect everyone to understand snakes and love snakes the way we do, but the least you can do is try to not be a problem to them by harming them. You don't have to like them, you don't have to love them, but you shouldn't be harming them, or purposely trying to create an issue to them. So whatever you've taken, you try and convince people that are hell-bent on probably killing them and smashing their heads. Try and convince them, give them information. You can always reach out to people on this platform as well. There are so many people that can give you information. Take that, use that data, and share it across, because it is a very time-consuming process of making someone realize that snakes are not really dangerous and so scary like they are portrayed by Hollywood and Bollywood with all those crazy movies. So use the data and make sure that whatever is discussed today is actually put to some good use, and don't just go by what people are saying. Think for yourself, take inputs from others, and then make an informative decision on whether you should be working.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sherry, for coming tonight. And Aaron, any last comments?
Yeah, on that same note where Sherry was talking about how people are really fearful of snakes, and the whole fear motive basically in our heads, and how she spoke about people naturally being afraid of snakes. One thing I would really like to end on is the whole fact about our fear, and the module that's really been, in my opinion, taken from monkeys and primates, because there have been a lot of studies that have been done wherein monkeys have been exposed to gunshots, and then the same monkey has been exposed to a sudden image all of a sudden of a snake, and they freaked out more times when the snake image has been put in front of them. So our fear of snakes, in my opinion, is more a result of what I would say evolutionary ancestry rather than social conditioning. So it's just a matter of learning more about them and knowledge, being able to be that bridge between fear and love and a passion for this amazing creature. And that's about it.
Super cool. Thank you. Benhail, last comments?
Live and let live. That's about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that. Live and let live, coexist, and let's have a better and more ecological future, because it's going to be better for everyone. Okay, thank you guys so much. Thank you to Thus for hosting us and talking about our passion for so long.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
And good night. See you soon.
There's a lot of